So we're going to go through some key things to know when using Veo 3 and some kind of core learnings there, how to best prompt for it as well. Welcome back to another episode of D2C Diaries.
Back with another solo duo episode.
They go down well.
They go down very well.
Yeah, I think we need to do these more. We've got loads coming up in terms of just valuable stuff that we're doing. I think a lot of what we are learning internally and sharing with the team, we are going to be sharing externally on D2C Diaries. So stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not.
Yeah, and I think if you're listening to this episode, head over to YouTube for this. It's going to be a visual show and tell. I'm in the passenger seat for this one. We've got AI extraordinaire Loukas Hamby.
Don't know about that.
He is at one with the robot at this point. We're going to be going through VO3, Gemini. We did have a bit of a loose idea of trying to, every time we cut back to Loukas, try to turn him into a different animal or character to really make this as interactive as possible. And then he told me how long that would take to prompt. So not quite that engaging, but hopefully value packed nonetheless.
Anyway, yeah. So today we're going deep into Veo 3. Obviously, Google released their new video gen model, which is a complete game changer, really, in many ways, especially in D2C and how it can be used for lots of different things that we're going to get into. So agenda today, we're going to go through use cases firstly for how we can utilize Veo 3 as part of paid ads. This is stuff we've been diving deep into over the last month. Key things to know, I've been probably spent near 24 plus hours over the last, way more than that actually, over the last couple of weeks, just really going headfirst into it. I blocked out a lot of my calendar over the last few weeks just to, really absorb it as much as I can. So I think there's some good learnings that I've taken that can apply. I think one thing I will say as well is make sure you're subscribed, because we're going to be giving away a load of amazing prompts that I've been really stress testing over the last couple of weeks for things like hook variations, concept ideation with ChatGPT before we bring it into Veo 3, and a few others. So yeah, make sure you get over to YouTube and subscribe.
Drop a comment robot and we'll send you one of those prompt guides over.
It's funny because every episode we never decide what the comment is. We just one of us just comes up with it on the spot.
Feels apt for this episode.
So we're going to go through some key things to know when using Veo 3 and some kind of core learnings there, how to best prompt for it as well. Creative philosophy, so just things to keep in mind when we're actually using it, because I think it isn't just about the output, it's about the script and how we use that script, how we lean into comedy, jaw-dropping elements, obscurity, emotional resonance, things like that.
Yeah, I think one real fundamental macro frame when approaching generative AI, I think that's interesting is a lot of people attempt to try and make it look as real and as close to what real life footage would look like as possible. And I almost feel like that's the incorrect approach a lot of the time. And that's obviously what Arcads, these UGC platforms are doing. But I think the video that you shared initially, that kind of when you were the first concept you put together, the space goods video, which I actually shared around a load of my group chats, and it was interesting just to see normal people who aren't in the industry's reaction to the video. They were it just blew them away. It's jaw-dropping sort of watershed moment from their point of view of what these AI models are capable of from a video, from a content generation perspective. So I think it's so valuable when you approach it with the right mindset and the right technical skill set to get the right output from the models.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's definitely a massive learning from it, lean into the ridiculous. But then I think a few examples I'll go through is there are cases where realism also does work, and taking learnings from an account that will apply to a hook variation, a visual maybe that has worked in the account previously. How can we take that visual and 10x it in just craziness. That's something we couldn't do before. And the example I'm going to go through today is that insight that we spoke about in the last episode about the powder on the spoon. I have now done a load of hook variations where it's like, you know, taking the learning of POV powder on a spoon, applying that to someone on a roller coaster holding a spoon with the creatine powder on it, and you know, all of these other crazy elements that like, we are taking the learnings but applying it to a different setting.
It's like taking it to the extreme, right?
Exactly.
There is just before, I think it's key to note there are limitations. We were going to do a collagen ad where you have one person interviewing another and she comments on how great her skin is looking, and you cut and she's literally a 3-year-old child talking about her collagen routine. But sadly, Google, probably wisely, don't actually allow you to generate babies talking about supplements.
They're not old enough to use.
Yeah, so
it's a shame because that was one of your best ideas, I think.
I think it's got legs eventually. But yeah, let's dive in.
Yeah, cool. So I think let's just start like to get the creative juices flowing on some like actual use cases, some things, stuff, a mixture of stuff we've done internally as well as stuff I've seen externally. The first one is podcast ads. So as we know, this is a popular format on Meta, works really well in many ways. And, you know, we've started experimenting as well as a few others that I've seen, taking the idea of a podcast ad, but pushing it to the extreme. So really good segue there, talking about the babies, because the example I actually wanted to share was from Motion, where they created an ad, obviously with babies on a podcast. So let's give this a quick watch.
AI career strategist.
Straight fire.
100%. What's your favorite task to run in Motion?
I like generate winning UGC scripts.
Oh, that slaps. That slaps.
Baby, these AI agents in Motion's marketplace are so clutch.
Yeah. Oh, do you remember a few years ago when we didn't have all these AI career strategists?
No, I don't. I wasn't even born yet. Neither were you.
Oh, true.
It's the mouths for me.
I love that bit. But yeah, a great example of like, you know, taking something and pushing it to the extreme. But I think the key here is leaning into the ridiculous. And one thing that just is really important that I've noticed with Veo 3 is how do we, in terms of that creative philosophy, how do we lean into like satire and comedy? And I think they've almost broken the fourth wall with that by then mentioning that they're babies and they're not actually old enough to have learned something. So it's a good example of that.
Pointing out the obvious, right? I think again, when you're looking at those examples, if you're trying to make it like, some people will be approaching it like, let's try and make the podcast ad look like a podcast ad. Trust me, it's usually easier just to film the podcast ad because the giveaway is still the mouths. Like if you look at the mouths, they're all over the shop when they're saying some stuff. So it's like, yeah, I think that, but when you're doing it in that context of like just daft concepts, like it kind of masks that. You're not focusing on it. You're kind of just focusing on the macro of the video, aren't you? Yeah,
for sure. I'm really interested just quickly by this example because I don't know if like Google would have allowed this, but the way, just to follow on from your point earlier, where if you're trying to get a baby to say something and it's not working, the other alternative route is it will generate the visuals, but it will have no audio. So you take that and you then dub it with either an AI voice after, or you record you record a voice on top of it, which I have a feeling is what they might have done in this scenario here.
Yeah, it didn't look like it's synced perfectly.
Yeah, and also it can be difficult to get the voice to match up perfectly because you only have 8 seconds essentially on Veo 3 in terms of the output.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the first example. The second one, which is probably my favorite of all of them, is essentially like satirical skits, and this falls into like TVC inspired ads that very much lean into like satire, sharp humor. They're made to feel really big, bold, and you know, they're very top of funnel. Now, this is probably something we wouldn't be doing at scale within an ad account per se, but it's a good example of like how it is being used. And I don't know if you saw this, I think I sent it to you, but it's these guys called Too Short for Modeling. They're actually filmmakers, but they wanted to do a commercial for Liquid Death. And I think this is showing, you know, how the lines are becoming blurred with what, you know, the barrier to entry previously versus now. they essentially were like, they love this brand and they've been trying to do an ad with them and pitch them an idea, but Liquid Death never got back to them. So they just went ahead and made a Liquid Death ad themselves. Have you seen this?
I haven't, I don't think.
It's actually incredible. I think it's one of the most funny ads I've ever seen. Okay, let's give it a watch.
Good afternoon, son. Want to take a guess why I pulled you over?
Oh, it's not what you think. It's Liquid Death. They're sparkling mountain water.
Wow, you weren't kidding. That is refreshing. But it's not why I pulled you over.
Oh boy. Is it the busted taillight?
Nuh-uh.
Is it because of the license plate?
Nope.
Shit, man, it's the dead guy, right?
No, sir.
Is it the human trafficking, perhaps?
Nuh-uh.
Man, is it the truck thing?
I don't think so.
Well, what is it then? The robbery?
No.
The bumper sticker?
No.
It's the roadkill, isn't it?
Haven't heard of it.
The chemical waste?
Nuh-uh.
Is it the roller coaster seat? Is it the cult thing?
Absolutely not. Hell no.
All right, I give up. What is it?
It's because it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Kevin.
Dad, you remembered.
Happy birthday to you.
You're the best
Happy
dad
birthday.
ever.
So stupid.
So good. But yeah, just again, leaning into the ridiculous there. And I think if you're using it, you know, to do something like that, you really have to. But a good example of, you wouldn't do it to that level of necessarily, but it's like, how can you take elements of that and apply that to a paid creative?
Yeah.
Or take maybe, you know, do something like that within a hook, kind of like Motion did before we introduced the solution.
Yeah. Love it. Just empowers creativity, right? Like, that was such a stupid idea.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The next example I wanted to share was almost like that story-driven montage. And I think the one that I wanted to share for this was the one that I did for Space Goods. And I think with this creative, I just wanted to like really push it to the max. So again, it's probably not the best example of like, we can do this at scale, at least right now. It probably took a couple of days to complete this, maybe like 8-9 hours in total, which isn't sustainable, like to be doing that at scale, as we know. But it's a great example of like how you can, again, use lots of really attention grabbing, obscure visuals while still aligning with the, you know, the rules of meta ads and the rules of like what a standard framework would look like through paid. So we'll give this a quick watch as well.
I think just brain fog is what a lot of people are battling, and that's what I was battling, and this definitely helped with that.
Have you tried any functional mushroom coffees?
Like closed cup or chestnut kind of thing?
Your mum must be so proud.
Experts attribute this trend to the perceived health benefits of functional mushrooms.
Are you supplementing with functional mushrooms?
Yeah, I drink Rainbow Dust by Space Goods. Combined with adaptogens and nootropics, it's designed to support your microbiome,
Your energy and your overall mood.
Your gut controls way more than just your poop, you know that? We're talking mood, immune system, even your brain.
Rainbow Dust could help restore balance to your gut in just a few weeks.
I've never had so much energy. I feel alive!
Dude, coffee is so 2023.
My go-to is double frappe, 7 pumps vanilla.
It's got to be Rainbow Dust for me. Cleaner energy without the coffee crash.
Bet you meditate too, don't you?
Space Goods.
Space good.
7 functional mushrooms, adaptogens, prebiotics, and no crash like coffee. Just pure, clean, cosmic clarity.
So yeah, just another example then. I think it's a good way of showing how you can use a standard, I guess, you know, unaware or problem aware story ad structure, but still layer in the ridiculous of it, you know. So we're keeping the dynamism there because we're using different characters to tell the same story essentially, but also the comedy is really important there because it almost works as the rehook. So there's those moments that are a little bit ridiculous within that, like, you know, a guy saying, I bet you meditate too, don't you? Or chestnuts when talking about different types of mushrooms. So it shows like the importance of layering in those elements to VO3 creative.
Yeah, there's just so many cuts and scenes in there as well that would have, when you look at it from a cost perspective, how much that would have cost to shoot, like with normal resource. I also like the ability to align like the retro themes with the brand identity, which is very difficult to do. So that congruency was really strong.
Yeah, it's a really good point. That's why I think Space Goods was a good one here, because we could align their brand guidelines, such as the pink neon vibe, 80s vibe of the brand, to the creative itself, which is something we'd really struggle to do otherwise, if we're filming that with art direction and everything else. And the final use case that I wanted to share was doing hook variations. So I think this is one thing that everyone watching this video can start doing tomorrow. So essentially, this is the idea of either taking a best performing creative that you have within one of your accounts right now, or, that you want to just continue to drive and catch the wave and make sure that we're continuing to drive spend through the asset by doing further iterations. Or if we've got a creative that is showing good promise, but maybe the hook isn't the thumb stop ratio is sitting below 30%. So a real quick thing that we can do is test more hook variations as part of that. So this was an example that I wanted to share because it aligns with what we spoke about in the last episode, where we talk about that creative that worked really well, which was the POV first person shooter style, where someone was holding a spoon and walking with the powder, which was creatine on top of it. So I wanted to almost take the learnings from that and apply that to different types of creative, and a mixture of taking unique learnings from the account and applying that to new creatives, such as how do we put that spoon in different locations and wild locations, but also just how can we create other, maybe more realistic variations that could have quite easily just been filmed in our studio. Because I think, it's important to test both. You don't want to go too far ridiculous that, you might be attracting attention, but the wrong kind of attention, and then you're getting high drop off. So I'll just show you a few examples here of some of the hook variations that I did for that concept that is already performing really well within the account. My mum said to me the other day that creatine was her biggest hack during menopause. Did a bit of research and women... That's the first one. This is the second one. Again, this one was a learning from the account that we saw whiteboard concepts doing really well. So I essentially took that and thought, okay, how can we do some more of these through iterations? My mum said to me the other day that creatine was her biggest hack during menopause. Did a bit of research.
That whiteboard was VO3 generated.
Yeah.
Mad.
Yeah. And I'll talk through the prompt shortly to get these kind of outcomes. This is the next one. My mum said to me the other day that creatine was her biggest hack during menopause. Did a bit of research. This is another one. So I tested this in both forms, either as a split screen with the spoon that I mentioned to you guys, with the original shot of the spoon below, or I did this as a version of just the spoon on the roller coaster. My mum said to me the other day that creatine was her biggest hack during menopause. Did a bit of research and women... So yeah, a few examples there of like how in probably about 20 minutes, I was able to generate 7 really strong hook variations of an already, best performer in the account.
So powerful. Makes your shoots go so much further, right? Like when you've got that body narrative or script or angle, it just allows you to explore so many different ways to get it in front of new audiences.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Powerful. So let's talk workflow. Like, for those people listening, how are we like thinking about operationalizing this or turning this into a workflow that produces like predictable, high quality output?
Yeah, for sure. So it depends if we're looking at this from the perspective of like a net new idea or from hook variations. I think just for the purpose of where we've just were, let's start with hook variations. So I'm going to just share my screen now and we can talk through like that exact workflow. So I've got essentially a prompt that is if we're looking to get hook ideas and brainstorm, we want to be starting with ChatGPT, because ChatGPT essentially is the brainstorming partner before we take anything into VO3. So the prompt is essentially, you're a creative strategist at a leading D2C ad agency. We'll pop it up on screen right now, so I'm not going to go through it in depth. I need a list of VO3 hook ideas based on the following brand and concept information. So that's where we input the brand name, the product, the angle, the persona, and the best thing to do to get really strong hook visuals, the next thing we would do is input the actual concept description. So you might already have that from an already best performer. So you can go back to the original brief, copy and paste the concept description and bring it into this same prompt, which we're showing on screen right now. The next thing it will say is generate 3 to 5 creative VO3 hook ideas designed for high performing short form, etc., etc. The key here is then the prompt will say, keep the description fairly short, and when we pick our favorite, we will need it to be turned into the below JSON script format for VO3, but don't transfer it until we said. So essentially then the prompt has the template of what we want to put into VO3. So the key things you need to be thinking about that go in that JSON format, which by the way, if we're just so people are aware, that's essentially JavaScript. So it's a text-based format that we use, which I found from split testing, JSON works better than just like a standard prompt input. But the prompt will be giving away down below. Remember to comment robot will have that exact structure that you need to be following. But the key thing there is that what we need to be including as part of that is the camera. So what camera are we using? This is where it could say GoPro. It could say like a really high-end camera. It could even be iPhone. ChatGPT will help brainstorm that with you as part of this process. Shot type. So is it an ultra wide shot? Is it a close up? Movement. So what camera movement are we seeing? Location. What location is it being filmed in, and time of day, because then it will really impact the lighting in the scene. Style. So again, this is where we discuss cinematic. Is it a doc style? Is it a UGC? Scene and subject. So who is the character? We want to break that down in detail. The better you can describe the character, by the way, or the individual, the more likely, if you're then generating a second prompt and you want that to follow up from the first. So let's say you've got a 20-second scene. You're going to have to break that into a few different outputs, because obviously VO3 can only produce 8-second videos. So the first, what we need to make sure we're doing is tying the, being very specific about what that character needs to look like. Just a little top tip on this, to get that consistency with characters, the key here is how can we anchor it to something that we know the AI will understand what that looks like. And what I mean from that is it's very easy to go on VO3 right now and type in, create a scene with a guy holding a Corona bottle. It knows Corona. If you think it's getting its data from like YouTube, it's going to know very much what a Corona bottle looks like, and it can easily model that out. Similarly with, if we want, let's say I want him to look like Kevin Spacey, but change his eyes to this and this, so he obviously doesn't look like Kevin Spacey. It's going to be able to anchor it to something that looks very similar. So that's how you can get your consistency across the scenes, if that makes sense.
That's a good hack.
We then go environment, then dialogue. I think another tip for dialogue is, if we want to really exaggerate certain lines within the script. So if I wanted to be shouting something suddenly, but the tone before wasn't a shout, do caps lock for the shout, and because it helps the emphasis. Tone. So what's the emotional tone? Is it excited, deadpan, etc.? Atmosphere. Again, lighting, soft golden hour, etc., etc. And then this is the most important one, because one thing that you will know if you started testing VO3 is it sometimes just randomly has like gibberish that just appears on the screen, like just random text that just makes no sense, almost like it's trying to create subtitles, but it doesn't make any sense. So as part of this prompt, within the constraints, we need to say no subtitles, no text, no logos, no music, because otherwise it could add random text on screen. It could add random music in the background. So we need to make sure we cover ourselves in the constraints. So essentially then we've got our prompt where we're going back and forth with the video ideas first. So I've inputted my concept description already as part of this prompt that obviously we've shown on screen. And then it's going to just give me a load of ideas. So this one is like the energy switch no one talks about, and then it will say what happens in the hook idea. it will give me a load of them. And then if I say, okay, let's go with the option you said, number 3, or what usually would happen is you'd have to, prompt engineering is all about reprompting, pushing for more. So I might say, actually, we're a bit too obscure there. Can we tone it down and do it a bit more like this? But eventually, let's say I like one of the ideas from ChatGPT. I'll go, let's go with option 3. It will then straight away come back with me with the exact template for within JSON, ready to copy and paste straight into VO3. So I'm going to then copy and paste that directly into VO3, click enter, and it's going to then produce the output that we need. So yeah, that in terms of like brainstorming hooks, that's the way that you can be utilizing ChatGPT with it.
You mentioned a few limitations there. Are there any others to be wary of? Like, are you best doing it in 4-second blocks? Are you best? I feel like that's key for any AI, right? Knowing it's as powerful knowing what it can't do as knowing what it can, because you can avoid a lot of like wasted time.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah, so there's a few. I think one of the biggest ones is that if you're generating actual ideas, you want to go from concept to script to shot list to prompt. So when you, as part of that prompt, when you're asking it to then take a whole concept idea that might be 30 seconds, it's really important as part of that, if you're then working in ChatGPT to develop it within your JSON format, that you're very clear that they have to do each 8-second block as a scene. So then it breaks it up into 8-second scenes, because otherwise, if you're not clear about that when you're going back and forth with ChatGPT, one thing that it's going to do is it will then make the scene longer than 8 seconds, and it will just cut it off within VO3.
It's kind of just that. It's kind of thinking about how you would shoot it anyway, right?
Exactly.
Like
you would
trying to think about going through the same motions and processes if you were just executing on a shoot, but you're just doing it on a laptop. Exactly
that. But just coming back to what we were saying about hooks, the brainstorm, like use ChatGPT as a brainstorming partner, and then use the exact template that we're providing you to then transfer that idea into a JSON script. As I say, the key thing as part of that is like, don't just take the JSON script at face value. Sometimes if I ask it to create a prompt, it will do that, but like add random dialogue that I didn't want on ChatGPT. So just make sure it's as you want it. However, what I've actually just found best at this point in time, because as we know, ChatGPT isn't the best for ideation, is when we're generating hooks with VO3, it's like, what are the learnings we can take from the account? So for example, what are some of the common visuals that we're seeing? So let's say like we're seeing in one of the accounts, I can think of one in particular, I won't name them, but we saw that external hooks were working really well, like busy streets and a lot of, motion and potential pattern interruption. So taking that to the extreme, I might just go to ChatGPT and say, create me a prompt for VO3 using the below JSON format that is a load of people crazily running in a circle on a street in London.
Or like a Tokyo Walk crossway, or middle of Oxford Circus at rush hour.
Exactly.
Middle of Piccadilly Circus.
So all you got to do is say, but I don't want any hook dialogue, and then it will take it and put it in the exact JSON format before you copy and paste that over to VO3. So I've found that to work the best right now, just in terms of taking those learnings or things that, obscure visuals that we want to test, and then transferring that into a full script, a full prompt ready to then put into VO3.
Love it.
Cool. One thing I did just want to also just touch on is just what I would recommend for how to use VO3 specifically. So as you know, we need to use Flow, which is as part of Google Gemini. When we go to like create a new project, we want to use text to video, and then there are options for either VO3 fast or VO3 quality. Now, VO3 fast, I would definitely recommend using over VO3 quality. Fast mode is probably about 10p per shot. and you get about 500 generations over the course of a month. Whereas quality, I think you get about half the generations across a month. And I have split test the two. Quality is slower, and there isn't really much difference at all between the two of them. So that's one thing just to be aware of. I definitely recommend using VO3 fast over quality. The next thing to just note is don't overcomplicate the prompt. We've actually made clear in our prompt templates that we're sharing that, you know, that keep everything short and sweet, and JSON structure helps do that. Because if you think that giving loads of huge amounts of detail is the best route, like that actually confuses things. So keep your prompts, you know, no more than 2 paragraphs. You want to be very direct. It's that idea of cut the fluff. If it doesn't add to the story, just get rid of it.
Yeah. I think you're asking the model to do a lot in that prompt, right? I think it's not like when you're trying to get it just to write some text or you're trying to output like some analysis. It's like you're asking it to generate so many different parts that comes together to create one construct. So it makes sense that it can kind of get lost if you go too far.
Yeah.
Can you use, can you just put the prompt in and ask it to refine it for you? I guess
in VO3.
Well, in like, say you've got a prompt that you think's a bit too long, could you literally input it and be like, let's cut this down, make it a bit more concise?
You wouldn't do it in VO3.
More GPT, maybe.
You would, yeah. That's why, like, I really encourage this workflow jumping between GPT and VO3, because what I would get the prompt where it needs to be in GPT, and then if I need it to trim it down, I would then reprompt it in GPT before I bring it. Yeah, exactly.
Refine it in there.
I think so. That's another thing that's really key. Touched on the random subtitles thing, so that's all good. I think another thing that, just for people in the UK that are listening to this, I mentioned previously how you create that consistency between scenes. So there's a scene builder mode which allows you to add on from the previous prompt of where you just were. It's not very good at remaining consistent. So as I said, the key things there, if you want the character in the scene to be the same as previously, be very specific about what you want them to look like. Anchor it to a potential celebrity or someone who we know is all over YouTube, because that's where it's getting a lot of its data from. But the best way, which sadly isn't available in the UK yet, because of all the legislation around AI and how much slower we are to get things, which, by the way, is really annoying, isn't it?
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Especially with this. This has been the one case where it's been the most frustrating, I think. You can kind of deal with it, but like just seeing all of the Americans jump on VO3 like 2-3 months ahead of time.
I know.
Is like the first thing where it's felt really frustrating.
Yeah. I actually listened to a podcast about this the other day, and it's like the reason why AI will become so dangerous is because America will never put legislation on it, because otherwise that will slow them down in the race against China.
Yeah. That's the see a lot of Elon Musk talking about like his like existential dread around AI and like that acceleration. And yeah, it's like an arms race, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Europe's is similar. Like Europe's also got very, very strong legislation, but it's like, what's the point if you're like, it's like, what's the point if they're not going to?
Exactly.
You literally just,
it needs to be
just
global.
behind. It's like, it's either, which is completely another topic, but.
So just quickly to finish that. So this hasn't come to the UK yet, but it's worth noting, especially if you're not inside the UK. The best way to match a character across 2 different scenes, or like 2 8-second videos, is there's a feature called frame to video. So let's say you generate an output and it's one character, a guy, let's say an old man. You want the next prompt to be the same man in the same house. You can download that visual from VO3. You can record the screen. You can screenshot that screen of him, and then you can upload it to this thing called frames to video within VO3. And then you can continue to prompt, say, use the same character as this, and then you go on with the rest of your prompt. And that's how it like will link it to that same visual and that frame to video, essentially.
You'd assume it's going to get to a place where it can just hold that context in a chat, and it's just going to be able to flow through and just prompt a full feature-length film from
100%
start to end.
Yeah, it definitely will. Like if you look at context windows of like what ChatGPT used to be versus what it is now, it will definitely get to that point.
Perfect. And I think consistency is key for brands, right? I think is that, especially if you're looking, we were on the performance lens where we're trying to be more abstract, we're trying to be pushing the boundaries, but from a brand team, I think it's, if you can get that consistency and congruency, it can be super powerful there as well, which is probably even more important.
For sure.
I wanted to, I think next on the document that we're working down is like product integration and sizing. Like I've found this challenging before, even on ChatGPT image generation, trying to get the products, get it in someone's hand without them having 19 fingers. Like all of that is like hands. It still struggles with hands as well. I think hands and mouths is like where it just gets a bit lost, but at times. But yeah, how are you approaching inserting the products into?
It's difficult. We're not there yet. So there's a few ways that you can do it. So one way is, which we can't get into too much depth today, and it is something I'm still really experimenting and playing with, but there's this thing called Flux Context within Black Forest Labs. So if you look at something called Black Forest Labs, you can essentially upload a product render, and it will then either put it in a scene for you that then you can take across into Veo 3. But the way that you will be able to do it is from that frame to video. So uploading a product render of that frame and then building that into a scene. But it's not yet at the point where it's strong enough in my eyes to be using it effectively.
Is it good at pulling? You mentioned Corona. Could it pull a Corona?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's just its context window. Like its context is YouTube, you assume, and anything else that Google can get its hands on.
Yeah.
So you'd assume that brands that have that video assets already out there, if you prompted a Nike, if you prompted Corona,
definitely
prompting ketchup, like you get
the big tier one brands, like the household names will it knows. Yeah. Because there's just so much. Like you say, the context window for those products is massive.
And there's nowhere currently to upload localized context in a way that you can with ChatGPT, or to the same level you can with ChatGPT. So you couldn't take like a internal feature, like loads of your content that you've made and just dump it in and then allow you to prompt from it yet?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Interesting. You'd expect that to come.
It will, yeah. Because I think what we're all seeing right now, even with image gen on ChatGPT, is like, it's the text normally that it doesn't get right. Like it will get the product and the shape there, but not usually the text. And that's why I think it's like, what are the techniques that we can use that don't necessarily require having a product there? Or like what Emotion did, where you're using that to really set up and agitate the before state. And then when we get into the solution, we then bring in other content. And that's where like the ideas of fake podcasts, obscure hook variations, street interviews, all of these different things that we can really set things up before we actually then bring in shots of and B-roll of the product.
Yeah, or even like what you showed earlier with the supplement is just doing the powder, just doing the capsule, just doing the drink.
Exactly.
It's like,
that's the thing. It did a really good job on the Space Goods of like holding the brown powder on a spoon, because if you can visualize that element without actually showing the branding, then that works well. And the reason why I could get away with it in the Space Goods ad is because I actually just used image gen at times. So I was like snapping Polaroid shots of people holding the product in the 80s as a way around from like being able to do that in the video.
Makes sense. Interesting to see when they do bring that upload, because I do think that'll just make it so powerful. Imagine that agent by brand video that you can just dump all of your asset library in and then prompt away from there.
Exactly.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's pretty mad. But yeah, I think like in terms of the prompts that we're going to be sharing as part of this, the main workflows that like we're using this for right now is turning concepts or ideas into Veo 3 formatted prompts. So that's the idea of using that exact prompt that I mentioned, loading in a concept description and then helping it develop the whole scene from that direction. So taking a brief to concept to script, etc. Brainstorming ad ideas as a whole. Again, you know, you can do that in a way that one thing that the workflow that I'm using quite a lot is like if I'm seeing a visual somewhere, whether it's TikTok, online, maybe from a best performing hook, if you want to like replicate that visual through VO3, the best thing you can do is upload that video into Google AI Studios and ask it to give you as detailed a visual description of what it sees on screen. You can then get a really great representation of what the visual is from what Google AI Studio describes and apply that to your prompt for VO3. And I've actually tested it and it does it really well. Like it can describe the visual so well, and then you can apply that to VO3 and it can recreate it in a very similar way.
Mad. I think, obviously we've been talking about getting to a finished product, but I also think the power is also in like, if you're struggling to translate an idea to someone else, like the ability to get it like halfway there through VO3 and then providing that for them to take and maybe shoot or translate into a final asset through that lens is really powerful.
Yeah. So I think this, as I say, the second one is brainstorming ad ideas.
Yeah.
Jump between GPT and VO3, lean into existing frameworks that you know are working for your brand. Say, here's a framework that we're using. Now I want you to help me come up with ad ideas for an obscure VO3 ad that uses street interviews as an example. Again, we've got the prompt flows for you for that. And the final one, as I said, is the creating dynamic hooks. And we've got the prompt flow that we'll be sharing for that as well. Yeah, was there anything else? Any other questions?
Not from me. I do think it's important to just state that there's some boundaries that people shouldn't cross in terms of copyright. Like,
yes,
I think, and it's quite interesting to see how this evolves, because you saw what happened with the image gen and that really famous anime guy. I just completely lost my mind. Like,
I know the one you mean.
I've seen a few really good actually on Twitter. Wes Anderson films that are like brands have made Wes Anderson style content just using VO3. But the copyright is a big
stay
risk
away
for
from
brands.
IP,
yeah,
or anything that's trademarked. So, because VO3 will be able to produce Mickey Mouse, but there's no way you should. Definitely don't put that in your ad.
Don't put that in your ad account. Don't put in Star Wars.
Don't create Joe Rogan talking about your brand.
No, all high risk. You could make someone like one removed from that, but yeah, just be careful with that. I know some people will be pushing the boundaries. But yeah, I guess my only question to finish is like, where do you think it'll end? Now you've been deep in it, like, what do you think is? Because I think it's gonna. I was reading a theory a while ago. I think it wasn't Paul Graham, but it was someone like that was talking about how it's going to get to the point where you can open Netflix and it knows who you are.
Yeah.
It knows your interests, your behaviors, your preferences, what you've been watching for the last 6 months, what you're really interested in now, based on all of your personal data, and it'll be able to generate a completely new feature-length film in an instant.
Or series, yeah.
Directly related to your personal preference that accounts for all of your interests, likes, and behaviors.
Because of an algorithm.
Because of an algorithm, which is kind of scary, man.
That's really scary. But that's exactly it. Like that is where it's going. And it is scary. And I think I went into VO3 a little bit like lackluster because like I went to film school and I'm all, I'm a creative person, and I was like, oh, this is going to destroy the industry and destroy creativity. But like by going through the process of creating that space goods ad, I like genuinely was like, I've never felt more creative. Like it almost allows you to really stretch your creative legs because the opportunities are like limitless.
Yeah. Just empowers you to takes off like the limitations or the shackles off of like what's possible, and you can. And I think just what we mentioned about taking things to the extreme, bringing in completely different like formats, styles, all of that, just with a prompt is crazy. But yeah, it's interesting to see how it develops.
I'm just interested, like with the legislation piece, what happens there, because you don't have to watermark yet, do you? I know with those UGC characters, I think you do on if it's something
I actually don't know, to be fair. I'm not gonna say something I'm not clear on. I think I know that when it's got likeness to an individual, I think that's where it's like a real area of like you have to make it very clear. So if it's a UGC character that's not real, you have to make it very clear that it's AI generated. I don't know what the legislation is for just a scene that has nobody in and is just generated rather than shot. I'd argue that it's pretty hard to tell. So like, how are they going to stop that? I guess I think it's interesting that opens the going off on a bit of a tangent, but opens the door back towards like NFTs and verification of content, and how that like whole thing that was very fad like and didn't really have that much utility becomes quite powerful when paired with a technology like this.
It's a really good point. I think that is very dependent on the legislation piece, because like it is obviously going to get to a point where you wouldn't need to do a shoot in the studio filming customers if you can model that quite easily. However, if legislation means that you have to be you have to make it very obvious that this was AI generated, I think like COVID and people working from home and craving being in the office, I think it's going to create a craving for realism and things that are actually real. So I can't see it replacing that anytime soon.
Yeah, I think that this is going to, if you think about like Facebook ads and D2C marketing, like it's been the Wild West since it started until probably the last 2 years in terms of what you can do. Until you've got these health category event limitations, like you can still pretty much say loose, very, very loose stuff on Facebook. And I feel like I do think the AI generation piece will drive like a real change in legislation.
Yeah.
Because I think it has to. Because otherwise it's like there could be infinite amounts of just lies on the internet of like fake people selling products they've never consumed to an audience that doesn't know they're not real. And it could be a product that just doesn't do what it says on the tin, like we've discussed on the previous episode. So it's like, that's just a world that's the utility to customers and the utility to society of that is just very negative, right?
I guess the flip to that though, being devil's avocado, is like, what is the difference between an AI character talking about how good a product is versus paying someone and sending them a script to say the same thing? Do you know what I mean?
That's what I mean. Like that should, if you think of it from like a pure like outcome for the people, like that shouldn't be acceptable.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I mean. I think it's not been legislated. It's been good for business that's not happened. But there's going to become a point, a watershed moment where that has to rebalance towards like authenticity and realism. And like UGC creators have to be people who have used the products. They have to be like customers, or like all of that just like corrects itself a bit. I feel like it's probably overdue that's the case.
Yeah, it's so true. Let's hope that day never comes.
yeah, it's gonna make our job really hard. I'm excited to see what it does for like top of funnel marketing. I think like we're in a world where it's going to help us a lot, but like that the ad you showed earlier, like I think it has so much power for like TV style ads.
Exactly.
In a way that's probably even more cost effective, makes them so much more accessible as well in a way that just wasn't possible before.
I think that's probably the one industry that in terms of production is going to, especially like VFX. I know I forgot what film it was, but there's already a film that's utilized Veo 3 for like VFX that hadn't that if it would have cost them I think around £500,000 more if they hadn't done it through Veo 3. And then, you know, you look at that video that I showed, like the Liquid Death one, you wouldn't know, would you? No. Really? Like that just looks like a great TV ad that is done with not even leaving the house.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we don't really notice, you can kind of tell when you're close to it, but if you're putting that in front of the general public, who some of them still find it hard to transact on a website, when you're taking it aggregate level, like it's just no one's going to notice. Everyone's going to think that's normal, just normal footage.
I think we can probably do a follow-up to this in the next like 8 weeks, because I just think it's just the law of accelerated returns. Like it's just going to keep developing at ridiculous rates.
100%. think this has been super valuable. I've learned a lot. I think people should be spending a lot of time on this and probably less time on ARCADs and these like UGC generation. I think it's so hard the amount of time you have to put in to get that out of that platform when you could just go pay a creator is just so much different to what you can get out of Veo3.
Yeah, and as I say, I think as an action, start with the hooks. It's an easy way in. There's lots you can do with it really quickly, and you can just iterate on all of your best performers through some obscure hook variations. But as I say, comment down below robot. We will be sending this to everyone that has commented and subscribed. Make sure you are subscribed because we've got some banging episodes and guests coming up.
Yeah, I'm excited to keep these going. Nearly at 50 episodes. Big episode coming.
It's a massive...
nearly a year of episodes. Yeah, every week. I think we missed 1 week because we were in South Africa. So
we've been pretty consistently weekly now for a long time.
We have, yeah. Thank you everybody for watching.
Cool.
Thanks
See
for
you in the
taking
next
us through
episode.
that.